Black metal bass lesson number 3. So today's going to be a little bit nerdy, talking about how to create some more black metal bass lines and make them a bit more interesting and musical. So let's go straight into the first example. So one thing to note, where possible, when you're playing bass, make sure you have them pretty much in sync with the kick drums, because the kick drums in the first example is just groups of 6 in the picking, so that's why you've got the rhythm going on with the bass line entirely. So that way it makes your rhythm section super tight and put together. So let's deconstruct the guitar chords used. So you had an E power chord, which consists of the note E and G. And then here, I'm adding in the minor third, but it's an octave up. So it's an E minor inversion. So the notes are going to be E, B, then G. 025 on E, A, and D. So you've got your power chord, minor chord, and then here, it finishes on a D major dyad. The notes D and F sharp. There's your D and F sharp. And in that guitar line, you've got this melody. Because the highest notes played create a melody within the guitar chords. So the bass line is based around that melody. But I'm adding in some more movement with the bass line. So that part there, I'm going down the B minor triad. So I'm going through the notes F sharp, D, and B. But the guitars are playing the D major. The D major dyad is within the triad. So therefore I can use that B note to create a melody using the notes of the chord that the guitars are playing. And also I wanted to make something catchy and something you could sing along to. And then on the second time round, so I just added in a little melody. So it's using the note that's a fourth up from E minor, which is an A. And it sounds quite cool. So you get that kind of sound. And then it's nice to have that da-da-da-da kind of melody. It just descends even further. So at the end it creates a major 7 chord with the guitars and the bass, because the guitars are still playing D dyad, and except at the bottom here we're playing the low G, so we're creating this kind of chord sound. Or if I play up here, so it kind of sounds a bit more sophisticated, a little bit more, I don't want to use the word jazzy, but it's definitely a lot more sophisticated and smooth sounding. And then by going down those notes from the D to the B to the G back to an E, you're using the relative major to E minor, which is a G major. So you're just playing the notes of the G major triad. And then finishing on the E, so it gives a really smooth transition into the next repeat. And the last time round, I believe I went. So I'm there just going up the notes of the E minor scale. F sharp, G, A, and then back to E. And that's called a perfect cadence when you're going from the 5th chord or the 5th note in a scale back to the 1st note. It would also be known as a 5-1. Because B is the 5th note of the E minor scale, and then it finishes on the actual E minor. So again, nice concluding sound. Gives it a resolve, some solid conclusion. And the cool thing about this chord progression, all of those notes are in the E minor scale, so you can use pretty much any of the notes in the E minor scale and it will work. And that's one way of taking what the guitars are doing and then adding to that, because you've learned the music theory, you've learned your scales, and you've also kind of worked the notes of the chords as well. So a guitar can just be playing two notes, but then you can add different notes in the bass and create different chord harmonies altogether. So that's example 1. So example 2 is more atonal, it's not set to any key. So what we have to do is work with the chords that have been played. So the first chord is an A minor on the guitar, then it goes to the D sharp minor or the E flat minor, and then it's F. And on the second repeat, it's A, E flat, F, then A flat. The boring thing to do is to play the root notes. But we can make that a little bit more interesting and use the root notes as a foundation to our playing. So that's what I came up with, and it's quite unconventional because it's using semitones in the bass, and it gives a really gnarly sound. Now if I play an A minor chord, if I now move the lowest note to a B flat, see how it gets kind of weird and more tense? Because that's what I wanted to build, tension. So I'm doing this. Create like this evil movement. You could say it's like Phrygian based because you've got your root note, flat second and minor third, but it's easy to think of it in notes. So A, B flat and C. So I'm kind of adding that in. And I'm kind of making it a bit more riffy in the bass by using all these tight intervals. Flat seconds and then going up the tritone. So it's like the bass is playing a riff within the guitar riff, which I think is cool. I like it when the bass moves and snakes around a little bit. And then on the F and the A flat chords, because I want solid and tough sounding transitions, I don't want to mess around with like a kind of thing going on. You could totally do it, but it kind of takes away from that focused low end that you get with faster chord transitions. And that's one thing to keep in mind as well. If there's like lots of chords moving around, it kind of makes more sense to move around with more root notes or the fifths of the chords, and sometimes if you want to, the thirds as well, because roots and fifths and stacking roots and fifths is very kind of like jum, 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 like very, very blocky in a way. It sounds very, very powerful. And there's times where you don't have to be so flashy in the bass line. So to smooth out the riff transitions, it makes sense to use interval movements that work around your root note or the next starting note, because A flat to A, very solid. E to A, very solid. C to A, very solid, which is the minor third. So that's Black Metal Bass Lesson 3. I hope this has been helpful, and stay tuned for more cool videos.